Serious. What's an uneasy gut feeling about someone that turned out to be spot on? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Me at 14. I think this guy my mom is dating might be a pedophile. Yep. He wanted to buy me a PC for my birthday and insisted on buying me a webcam even though I said I didn't want one. I woke up while he was sneaking in and out of my room at night. I started sleeping with a knife under my pillow. It turns out this guy distributed child porn and was looking to create his own. He raped his niece when she was 9. She had an abortion at age 10 because of this prick. The kicker? We all lived in his sister's house with the niece. I didn't know anything until my mom told her friends, people who she met through this effer, spilled the beans. I basically got ripped from hanging out with the niece, thrown into a car, and was moved to a completely different town. I'm still looking for his niece to this day. Our neighbors had an older lady who lived with them, never left the house, and was always in the kitchen working. They spun the story that she was their mother, their children's grandmother, and she lived with them to help around the house. We took this at face value, but it never seemed right. They would go away for a month every year, and she would be left in the house, not allowed to leave for the month they went away. It sounds terrible now, but we actually affectionately nicknamed her the slave because she seemed to always be working around the house. Turns out, they brought her over on a 3-month visa, didn't allow her to leave, and held her as a slave in their house for 8 years. Our now ex-neighbors have both just been found guilty of holding a slave for 8 years and various other charges. In junior high, grades 7 to 9, we had a special ed program for kids with disabilities. There was this one teacher there who was also coached volleyball. A lot of us got the creeps from him and would often call him a perv. Well, turns out years later, when I was in high school, grades 10 to 12, he was caught in the school gym making a special ed student sit on his crotch. Made the news. Last I heard, he got jail time. Good. Coworker couldn't figure out what he was hiding. After he got fired, we saw his mugshot on the local news a few weeks later. He was raping 2 young girls for 7 years and had over a dozen sexual charges. Could not believe how my gut feeling told to be true. My sister's father-in-law. When I met him, I was probably around 13. He always creeped me out and wanted a hug from me when our families would have to be around each other for the events, and I never wanted to be around him. Found out years down the road that he was in jail a long time ago for raping his own daughter when she was a child. His wife stayed with him too. I tried my best to stay away from my brother-in-law's whole family as much as possible. Friend of a friend. Dude gave me the creeps. He was nice enough and was like well kept and like there wasn't anything I could put my finger on about him. He didn't smile weird or anything like that. I just felt uncomfortable around him. He would always tell people he was a male feminist, which I thought cool enough. Was always using that as his shtick around the punk house he lived in with a bunch of other people. Anyway, eventually it turned out the dude was a serial rapist. Someone called him out and then other women kept coming forward. He would tell women it was cool to sleep in his room because he was a feminist and didn't drink. Turns out it wasn't safe to sleep in his room. At last check, he raped 9 women. He got shit kicked out of him and skipped town. Rot. One time, when I was about 14, my nan and I were walking her dog in an empty park. It was November and 9 p.m., so it was dark. This random man started walking close and instantly I felt uneasy and knew something wasn't right. He started circling us. Anyway, long story short, once I'm back in the car and my nan is at the back of the car, we thought he'd gone, but he hadn't and had come sprinting back and viciously attacked her right in front of me. If you had a bad feeling, listen to it and get out of there. Don't spend the extra time putting your dog in the back, just bring it to the front of the car with you. It could save your life. A guy would always walk around near my bus stop, never really doing anything nor going anywhere. Looks like a normal guy, but could never shake the feeling that something was off about him. And then last week, actually the guy attempted to rob my ass. Pretty shit job at it though. Man asked if I had any money on me and what phone I had. I tell him cause honestly my phone is kinda shit and who carries any good amount of money to the bus? He then proceeds to flash his gun and say, "If you was lying, I would have had to hurt you." Then he walked off. Haven't seen him since. What pisses me off more was that my bus was late by an hour. Years ago, my then husband was talking to one of our neighbors. He introduced me to him. I only said hello and walked back to the house. My husband came in and said he thought I was a bit ignorant. I said I didn't care, as the guy gave me the creeps. About a year later, we found out he was sentenced to 10 years. He had raped his daughter for a number of years. Turned out his grandson was his son. I knew my gut feeling was right. He was an effing creep. One of my friends would always do weird stuff to people's drinks, as a joke, like put pepper in someone's Coke at a restaurant when they got up to go to the bathroom, or even spit in someone's water at a bonfire, stuff like that. And I always thought it was super weird, his fixation on messing with people's drinks. He had done shit like that since he was 7 when we met. Everyone knew not to leave your drink unattended around him because he would F with it. Long story short, it turns out one of our buddies caught him trying to put something in a girl's drink and he got the shit beat out of him. Super weird. We literally would joke as kids that he was going to be the creepy guy at the bar putting roofies in people's beer. I worked at an elementary school for a while with a seemingly really nice principal. He was really great with the kids and the whole staff loved him. I got called in for a meeting about one of my students one day and for some reason got super uncomfortable being in an enclosed room alone with him, which had never happened up until that point. I couldn't put my finger on it, so I blamed it on my past trauma and got through the meeting. A couple months later, he got fired and arrested for jerking off to young women in semi-public. Thankfully, no kiddie stuff was involved and, to my knowledge, he never hurt any children. I attended a church in a southern state many years ago. I was as involved as I could be with the congregation. I was not from the area, so the church family became my family. A man started becoming involved with the church. He said all the right things and did all the things you'd expect of someone genuinely interested in making himself a better person. But something just felt off. But I was the only one that felt that way. He was a con man. After a few weeks or months of ingratiating himself with the pastor and congregation, he promptly started targeting the elderly with his business ideas, sort of the driveway resurfacing scams you see. Thankfully, it didn't last long, and he suddenly disappeared off the face of the earth. The damage was minimal, but I felt vindicated a bit. My ex, who is referred to as he who shall not be named. He was spoiling me with attention and flowers and made me uneasy. I didn't listen to my gut because the gals at work were telling me how lucky I was to be spoiled. We moved in together. He isolated me from everyone and then proceeded to start beating the crap out of me. Tried killing me multiple times. Leaving wasn't an option, so I learned to deal with it. I had the life-saving opportunity fall into my lap that allowed me to kick him out, get the landlord to rewrite the lease with just my name, and the job that landed in my lap allowed me to have my kids there, where they were out of school. I never applied for that job, and they had no idea how they got my contact info. They saved my life, literally. This could have turned out much worse, but here's my story. Years ago, I was in a drama class with this one guy. He had this nervous energy, leg always bouncing, clicking and tapping his pens, that kind of thing. I feel bad looking back on it. I don't like to be judgmental, but he always gave me a weird gut feeling. I mentioned to a friend in the class that Mr. Ansi gave off bring a gun to school vibes. We chuckled, but nothing came of my little comment. Fast forward to the end of the quarter. Our final in the class was to either write, direct, or act in a small skit. We were split up into several groups, mine choosing to adapt some Shakespeare piece that I've forgotten now. All of us met up the day before to do a practice run and critique one another. Mr. Ansi's group took the stage, with him acting in the lead role. I later found out he had written the script too. The skit was about a troubled dude in high school who had family problems, drinking problems, and was bullied by his peers. The main character, played very seriously by Mr. Ansi, brought a gun to school and shot his bullies, his teacher, the girl he had a crush on, and then himself. At the end of the skit, it turned out to all be a dream, but I was absolutely floored that I had somehow picked up on something. That guy was always nice to everyone, myself included, and I hope that he's doing well wherever he is. My dad built a new toy box for my daughter. It was so cute. We figured she would probably want to climb inside it, so we used a wide drill bit to make a few holes for air. A few nights later, on my way to bed, I was struck with a horrible feeling. I went to check on her and she wasn't in her bed. I went into the closet where the toy box was and she was inside, covered in sweat. and the whole toy box had condensation on it. I quickly scooped her up and threw her in a lukewarm bath and made her drink some cold water. She was fine and went back to bed, but not before I scooted that heavy toy box to the living room, where it stayed for about another year until she was older and could be trusted with basic rules. We also added quite a few more air holes, just in case. One night, I was closing at work alone, and this guy just gave me chills. Odd behavior, lingering, and wouldn't leave me alone. He finally left, and I asked my dad to come over and wait in the parking lot until I came out just to be safe. My next shift, his mugshot was posted in our break room. Multiple instances of arrest, all taking place in our shopping center. Dude was not right. Turns out, he was even banned from the place and had multiple restraining orders against him. Always trust your gut, folks. When I was in grade 9, I sat beside the one kid in French class. I was quiet, awkward, and liked to be noticed as little as possible. This kid was brash, loud, easily agitated, always in trouble, was popular, but also always gave me weird and off vibes. He was the type of kid that you looked in the eye and could just tell there was something off with him. I vividly remember him always barging into class late, loudly singing children's songs and nursery rhymes while striding to the back before the teacher either threw him out or waited for him to settle down. Everyone always laughed and thought he was a jokester. I nervously tried to have him notice me as little as possible, which also trying to stay on his good side in case he ever snapped and did something. Fast forward 10 years, and this guy's made national news for allegedly strangling his girlfriend 9-month-old child to death. He's actually still on trial, claiming that he didn't do anything and he found the child unresponsive. There's a mountain of evidence against him. There's absolutely no way I believe him. A couple months ago, I met this guy and we got to chatting. Right around the same time we met, I started having the weirdest changes. For some reason, I lost my appetite completely, lost interest in a lot of my normal hobbies, and just felt generally restless. I had literally no idea what was causing it since everything in my life, work, family, personal, was going great. But again, it started at the same exact time I started talking to this guy. He really seemed like a good, genuine guy and I liked him a lot. A couple of weeks later, I realized he wasn't really who I thought he was, and things ended as quickly as they started. After we went our separate ways, everything went back to normal and I could eat and I felt normal again. I've never had anything like that happen before. So strange, but it was like my body knew something was off before I did. Had a new guy start working at our job, and he was very charming, personable, and friendly. Me and another coworker were the only people who didn't get a good vibe from him. Everyone else thought he was great. We come from toxic, abusive childhoods and pick up a lot of cues. Things he said, overly friendly, etc. He had everyone feeling bad for him because he wasn't able to see his daughter, bad-mouthing his baby mama. He stopped coming to work. Turns out, he got arrested for breaking a restraining order that he got for physically abusing his baby mama. He was almost textbook narcissistic and manipulative abuser, charmed everyone, and everyone was shocked when they heard the truth. Me and my other coworker knew our weariness was right.